Okay, welcome to the top half of page 22 where we're going to learn how to do algebraic fractions. So we're going to use the same rules for fractions that we've just learned, and this time we're going to throw in a bit of algebra as well. So if we start with number 1, I can see it's adding, and as long as the denominators are the same, if we just apply straightforward rules, the denominator will stay as 4. If we add across the top, 1a plus 1a is 2a, and then we can simplify this further. 2 over 4, 2 quarters is the same as 1 half, or looking for the common factor, highest common factor, 2's into that go once, 2's into that go twice. Now 1a, or 1 times a, we can just write that as a over 2. Looking back at this, you can see that this here is another way of saying 1/4 of a divided by 4 is 1/4 of a, and here's another quarter of a. So if you have 1/4 of a plus another quarter of a, 2 quarters add together to make 1 half, you'll end up with 1 half of a. Number 2, I'm adding. I see the denominator is the same, so we'll continue with fifths, and adding across the top, 2 apples plus 1 apple is 3 apples, and just check whether you can simplify before moving on. Number 3, I'm adding, and I can see that the denominator is the same, so we'll keep it sevenths. Adding across the numerators, 3x plus 4x is 7x. Now before we rush on, we need to stop and see if there's any simplifying, and of course 7 sevenths, 7's into that go once, 7's into that go once, and it just equals 1x or x. Now this time I recognise that the denominators are different, so we can't add thirds and quarters. We're going to have to change both fractions into something with a common denominator. So we'll use twelfths, which will be the least common multiple of 3 and 4. Now to this fraction, to change from thirds to twelfths, we had to times by 4. And of course, if you multiply the denominator by 4, you have to multiply the numerator by 4 as well. And 4 times 2x is 8x. This fraction, to get from quarters to twelfths, you have to times by 3. And if you multiply the denominator by 3, you need to multiply the numerator by 3 as well. And 3x times 3 is 9x. Now that the denominators are the same, we can add, keeping with twelfths. Adding the numerators, 8x plus 9x is 17x. We could simplify the 17 over 12 to a mixed number, but it's fine leaving it like that. And number 5, it's a subtraction, but I've got different denominators, so we need to find a common denominator, and the least common multiple of 2 and 5 is 10. Now to change that fraction into tenths, I'd have to times by 5. 2 5s are 10. And so doing the same to the numerator, so we don't use a whole new fraction, b times 5 is 5b. And of course, if you look, this is b over 2, or half of b, and 5 tenths is the same as a half. This is 2 fifths, which is the same as 4 tenths, so it should be 4b. But running through our process, I can see that I need to times by 2. Denominator times 2, numerator times 2 to give me 4b. So my final answer, 5b minus 4b is 1b, and we don't need the 1 in front of the b. Number 6, least common multiple, I think this time should be 9, so we could keep the first fraction the same and just change from thirds to ninths. To do that, we'd have to times by 3. So we times the denominator by 3, we need to do the same to the numerator. 2d times 3 will be 6d. So this time we're going to end up with a negative 5d take away 6d is negative 1d. And over 9. And of course you don't need the 1 there, we could have written it as negative d over 9. Now this looks a bit more complicated, but if we follow the rules, the denominator can stay as a 3 because we're dealing with thirds. And now we need to add the numerators. I've got 1x plus 1x is 2x. And adding the constant terms, 2 plus 1 is 3. And that's all we can do with that. There's no simplifying there. We can't cancel out the 3's because of that plus. The 2x plus 3 is joined together up there. We can't just go cancelling out the 3. Right, this time we've got fifths. So working with our numerators, 2x plus 2x is 4x. This time I've got negative 1 plus negative 3. Minus 1 plus minus 3 is minus 4. And no simplifying further. Number 9, we're dealing with sevenths. So working with our numerators, 3x, take away 1x will be 2x. And now here's a trick, and we're going to have to be very careful with this because we've got plus 1 minus minus 4. 1 take away negative 4. Now when you subtract a negative, it's actually the same as adding. Subtracting a negative, the two negatives cancel each other out and make it a plus. So we actually end up with 1 plus 4, which is 5. You have another look at that one. Number 10, of course this time we'll need to change to find a common denominator of 15ths. First fraction we need to times top and bottom by 5 to get 15ths, so be careful with the numerator. We need to times both terms by 5. 5a plus 5 times 2 is 10. Second fraction, to change from fifths to 15ths, we need to times by 3 to the top and the bottom, so we don't change the fraction. And of course we need to multiply the whole numerator by 3. So 3 times a is 3a plus 3 times 1 is 3. And combining the same denominator and being careful with our numerators, 5 apples plus 3 apples, 8 apples. 10 plus 3 is 13. And no obvious further cancelling there. Alright, 4 quarters and fifths, least common multiple of 4 and 5 will be 20. Let's think about what we do to this fraction. To get 20ths we have to times by 5. So we have to do the same to the numerator, the whole numerator. 5 times b is 5b, plus 5 times 5 is 25. Second fraction, this time we're timesing by 4, top and bottom. 5 4s are 20, and now to the numerator. 4 times b is 4b, plus 4 times 2 is 8. Now we can do the addition. We're going to end up with 20ths, and 5b plus 4b is 9b. 25 plus 8 will be 33. No obvious further cancelling there. This time, least common multiple will be 4. So we can leave that one the same. Being careful with this fraction, timesing top and bottom by 2. 2 2s are 4 for the denominator. Timesing the numerator by 2, both terms, 2d plus 4. Now we're going to have to be very careful with this one again. Doing our subtraction, we've got 1d take away 2d, well that's a negative, negative 1d, we'll just put negative d. Now being very careful and using our pen as well to help us, negative 3 minus 3 take away 4. So let's think about that again. Minus 3 minus 4 would be minus 7. You have another look at that one.